One member who has certainly retained their seat is Michael Sukkar. He managed to buck the trend, in fact, in the seat of Melbourne, the seat of Deakin, I should say, in Melbourne, increasing his margin rather than having a swing against him. He joins me now in our Melbourne studio. Michael Sukkar, thanks for your time. A lot of speculation. You were, in fact, in for a promotion on Monday that obviously didn't turn out for you in the end. Do you get the sense you're still in line for a shot next time?
Well, hi, Tom. Great to be with you. Look, it's always flattering to be mentioned by anybody as being in the frame for promotion. I think what we saw on the day of the promotions being announced and in the swearing in was a really fantastic team. The PM had said all the way through the election that the team that went to the election was the team that would serve on the front bench following the election, and he stuck to that promise. Obviously, there was some minor changes to take account of the unfortunate circumstances of some colleagues who'd lost their seats. So, look, I think the appointments that he made were brilliant. A very good friend of mine and a colleague who I respect and admire the most in the Parliament, Zed Sasalja, got up, so I was very pleased for him. And I think a very, very tough decision-making process for the Prime Minister. I didn't envy him and all the competing objectives that he had to balance, but all in all, I think he made some very good decisions, and we've got a great team. And obviously, I think we've got a pretty strong backbench team, and I'm very pleased to be back here, as you mentioned, Tom, as the member for Deakin, and that's our primary obligation as MPs, is to serve our electorates, and I've got a big job to do in the electorate and in Canberra as well.
You did manage to really buck the trend, go from a margin of about 3% to 6% in your seat of Deakin. There must be a tinge of disappointment. Perhaps that wasn't more recognised?
Well, Tom, as I said, I mean, the Prime Minister had an embarrassment of riches, and the reality is you just never know in politics when your opportunity will arise, and you've got to grasp those opportunities. I know that the people who he's promoted will grasp those opportunities, and you know, I'm very, very happy serving my electorate, and if the PM was to ever call on me to serve in any higher capacity, I would take that on. But right now, there's a lot to do, and as you say, we've got some big challenges in Canberra, and I'm going to be on the backbench very, very constructively working with my colleagues and ministers to make sure that we can provide the most effective, stable government we can, and that's a big job in itself. So I'll recommit myself to that, and I'm just very, very pleased to be back in Canberra.
There's been a bit of talk as well, of course, about the blend between the right and the left of the party. One promotion from the right, Zed Sasalja. Do you think the proportions right now accurately reflect the party, that that's a fair representation, just one promotion from the right?
Well, the great thing about the Liberal Party is we are a meritocracy. We promote people based on merit. We don't have a hard factional system. I've been seeing in the media in the last couple of days the left and the right of the Labor Party carving up their ministries. We don't operate in that way. We operate purely on a merit basis, and that's what gives us great strength, because when you look at our front bench, you know every single one of those people has earned their spot. And as I said, the people that the Prime Minister swore in earlier this week are a great team. They're all there on merit, and we don't carve up based on a factional basis, and that's something that I'm very proud of, and I think it's something that gives us great strength.
It looks as though, from all the signals as well, that Tony Abbott won't be going back, you'd think, at any time, certainly under Malcolm Turnbull, within the ministry at all.
Well, Tom, look, as I said, you can make a huge contribution in our Parliament from the backbench. It is a great honour to just be an MP, and I shouldn't say just. To be an MP in itself is an extraordinary honour, and whilst there's nothing wrong with having ambitions for greater office, there's no shame in being an MP, and I know Tony is very keen to represent his electorate. Obviously, as a former Prime Minister, he occupies a very, very important position as being an elder statesman of our party. He's somebody whom I look up to very much, and don't underestimate the impact that he'll be able to have as a backbencher. And, you know, I think he, along with me and all of the other backbench team, have a much more important job in this parliament potentially than we did in the last, because, as you say, the numbers are a lot tighter, and it's going to be important that we're a very, very close-knit unit, and I'm confident we will be.
Been a lot of commentary as well on Sonia Kruger's comments this week about calling for a ban on Muslim immigrants to Australia. I was interested in Peter Dutton's comments this morning, saying he believes the haters piling in on Sonia Kruger were playing into the hands of terrorists. Is that a concept you agree with?
Well, it always worries me when those on the left, you know, who try to argue for, you know, openness and you know, free speech, and that we should all sort of love one another. The minute somebody says something that they don't agree with, they do pile in on them, and I think it was unfortunate. Obviously, and you know, the Minister Peter Dutton has made clear Australia doesn't have a discriminatory immigration policy, but what successive Australian governments have said is that we want to bring in new migrants to this country who share our values, who are going to make a positive contribution to our country, and we should never, ever shy away from that. I believe that we need to be bringing people into our country, like my father. Obviously, I'm a bit biased, but my father, who was a migrant here from Lebanon, he's been in Australia for you know, nearly 50 years now, but he has loved this country. I think his values have been something that has contributed greatly, and his cohort has. So we should never be shy, or we should never shy away from saying that we want an open society. We want a very, very generous immigration and refugee program, but we want to be bringing people here who share our values and are going to contribute positively to our country.
A couple of policy issues to work through. Superannuation, do you think there should be changes to the reforms taken to the election?
Well, Tom, we've got some internal party processes. We've got a backbench committee, we've got a party room. They will look at the implementation of these policies. Broadly speaking, the policies that we've taken to the election should be the policies we make an earnest attempt to legislate. Now, of course, we've got internal processes that will look at maybe rounding the edges off here and there, but I think they should be kept to those internal processes. We have them for a reason, and I know that the Treasurer is pretty keen to see those discussed in a robust way through the backbench committee, but ultimately keeping faith with what we took to the electorate.
Right, there might need to be revenue neutral and that sort of stuff we've heard about, but you're a backbench voice still. Are you one that think you can take a few, as you say, round some of the edges off that you hope that can happen to this policy?
Well, every single policy that you announce pretty much on budget night will have implementation issues associated with it that need to be dealt with in the drafting process of the legislation. This, I don't think, will be any different. Yes, as a backbencher, I am free to speak out on these things, and I will be speaking out, but I think at this instance, that speaking out should occur internally. We've got internal party processes to do it. I'm very confident that we'll land on something that simultaneously keeps faith with what we took to the election, but also deals with some of the concerns that have been ventilated. And that way, we can look at our community and say we are delivering on what we have taken to you and for which we have a mandate.
One person speaking out before that process, of course, is George Christensen, saying he'll cross the floor. Do you think this is seen by George Christensen and people with an issue with this as a test of Malcolm Turnbull's leadership very early on?
Well, I can't speak for George or try and speculate on what he is thinking. I think he has made a self-evident point that as a backbencher in the Liberal Party, we have a proud tradition of being able to cross the floor if necessary, but I don't think it'll get to that. I know George, he's a good friend of mine. I think, as I said, through the backbench process and our party room process, we'll be able to get to a landing that everybody's comfortable with, but importantly, keeps faith with what we took to the election. So I don't really think that ultimately we'll have people crossing the floor.
OK, Michael Sukkar, we'll see how all the process, of course, plays out in the next few days. Thank you for your time tonight, though, on The Latest. And